Welcome to Detroit's Darkest Times. First thing we want you to do is subscribe, hit the like and the notification bell. This segment is going to be on my Grease Monkey days. And I'm going to tell you some stories, bringing back to life different vehicles, working on different vehicles, and things of that nature. Before we get started, if you'd like to support the channel, our cash out is $FC313. Our PayPal is DDT313. If you'd like to support in that way. If you're not able to support in that way, that's cool too. You can just subscribe, hit the like and the notification bell. Any support is good. So that being said, let's get into the story. This takes place in Detroit City on Livernois and Plummer. Address 2506 Livernois in Detroit City. So this house is no longer there anymore, but behind this house is where I worked on cars. We actually took the fence down in the backyard so we could actually work on cars in the backyard. This is a house that I once lived in Detroit City. So we take the fence down, we start working on cars. And anybody that knows anything about being a mechanic and working on cars, you'll get customers. You can start with no customers at all, and you'll get customers through the word of mouth, based on the kind of work you do. So what takes place is we buy this house on Livernois. We take the fence down in the backyard. We're going to work on cars because this is what we know how to do. So we take the fence down. First guy we get is a older gentleman, Mexican guy from over on Verner Highway in Detroit City. And he's got this Buick, and he has a flat tire on Plummer right by our alley, and we're in the backyard. So we go to see if he needs help, and he actually does because he's an older gentleman. He can't change the tire. So we change his flat tire for him and let him know that we do mechanic work. And then he was like, well, I need an alternator put on my car. And mind you, this Buick, he said he bought this Buick new, but he had it for some years. So he had done put a lot of Bondo in this Buick because due to the salt on the roadways in Detroit City, that salt to eat a car up over time. So he put a lot of Bondo in this car. It was primered. and then he had the top of it painted yellow, and the primer was like a reddish brown type primer, and had all the hubcaps on it, and stuff like that. And he said this was his baby. He really liked this car. He's had it since it was brand new. And so we told him we could put an alternator on it. So he said, I'm going to go buy the alternator right now and I'll be back, after he paid us for fixing the tire. So he goes and gets the alternator. He comes back. We put the alternator on his car for him. And this guy was a nice dude. Like I said, he was a Mexican, older gentleman, nice guy. He lived over on Burner Highway. And we fixed his alternator for him, and we're all talking, in the process, getting to know each other. And this guy, he just enjoys our company. And he starts bringing his car at least once a week, if not twice a week. And what he's doing is he's just changing parts on the car that there was nothing wrong with the part, but he said, he's had the car for a long time, and he said before it goes out, he wants to change it. So he had us doing, all kinds of things, like putting a starter on it, putting new mufflers on it. I mean, he was just sinking some money in this old car that he said was his baby, So he was an interesting guy. We had good conversations. Made good money from him. Then he started telling people he knew about us. And then people in the neighborhood that just would ride by, they seen that we worked on cars. And then next thing you know, it didn't take long at all, really. Next thing you know, we was just constantly working on cars every day in the backyard. And during this, we end up doing some mechanic work over on, it's about 2 blocks away from this place. It's in a big garage. We're actually doing work on semi-trucks, And we work for a dude over there. His name, they called him Schoolboy. And he had a tow truck that was blue, had all kind of lights on it, chrome wheels. It was decked out. It didn't look like you needed to be towing no cars with it. It was looked like a show tow truck. But he was a cool dude. We did some work for him over there in the garage. Stuff like that on semi-trucks. So in between that, a lot of times we was working at our house, but if things got a little slow, we'd go over there and do work for him, or he'd come over there and tell us, hey, can y'all come over and do something for me and stuff. And he had a big garage that you could put a semi-truck inside. And it was close to the viaduct over by Junction. And the street was right off Livernois, 1 block up from our house. It was where the Whistle Stop Bar was. I don't remember the name of that street. I think it's Federal. It's the name of the street. But anyways, you go straight down from Whistle Stop Bar down Federal like you're going toward Junction. Before you get down here toward the viaducts, there was a turn-in, like a big factory and stuff. You turn inside there. Then they had a little, Pepsi Cola had a little place they rented in there just to keep their I believe they was just keeping their empty Pepsi bottles there. And if you went straight on back to the end, there was a big garage, and that's where we worked on, semi trucks and stuff like that for that dude named Schoolboy. But anyways, that's how my Grease Monkey days took place. We started doing a ton of work in the backyard, different people's cars in the neighborhood. Some people that the Mexican guy knew, he sent us customers and stuff like that. And then also, Schoolboy knew this dude. It was a friend of his that worked at Chrysler. And anybody that knows anybody who worked at Chrysler, you're usually making some good money working for Chrysler. And I don't know how long, he was an older gentleman. I don't know how long he actually worked for Chrysler. He could have been with them for a lot of years, But Schoolboy sends them to us, and we're in the backyard working on, cars and stuff like that. And he says, hey, I got a 55 Chevrolet that I ordered a motor and a transmission for it. And I was wondering if you guys could put it in for me. If I get the car over here and then have the motor and transmission shipped over here, if y'all could, put it in for me and then put everything together for me, And then we're like, yeah, we can do that. And so this is how we ended up bringing back to life this 55 Chevy. Started on it first. And one thing the guy, I think he did wrong on, but we had to be real careful. Because what he did, he had went and had the car painted outside, painted it before he put the motor and trans in it. So that was a little issue for us, because, you got to try to keep from scratching the paint and all that when you're doing this job. But anybody that knows about a 55 Chevrolet, there ain't much to the transmission and there's not much to the motor. You know what I mean? Not like today's time where you got a ton of stuff on it. So that's something we had to be careful with. But we got, motor end and transmission end. And then, we had to do the belts and all the other accessories that goes with it. But this is when I had a previous event with some older cars like the Fleetwood Cadillacs that was huge, very long, and a lot of room in them. When I first seen one of them, that's when I really took a liking to old vehicles. But once we started doing work for this guy, and I seen how easy it was to do the mechanic work on an older car, because you got plenty of room to work, work on it and everything like that. It ain't nothing like today's car. So that just really inspired me more to like older vehicles, And it was pretty simple back in the day. It didn't have a whole lot of things on it, so it was just the basic stuff, and you had plenty of room to work on a car, no matter if you was just changing a part or if you was putting a motor in or a transmission in. And this guy ordered the brand new motor and he ordered a brand new transmission. So this really helped too, Excuse me. Well, we get this close to finish, and every once in a while he's coming, because we told him, we can do it, but we got other cars we work on too, so we couldn't just stay on top of his car, because we had other cars to do too. And so he said he understood, he was just wanting it done. And so every so often he would come by and check on it and see what what progress we made and all that, you know. And it didn't take us that long, but we was doing other cars in between doing his car. Then we get close to getting finished, and then he's like, "Hey, I also got a '49 Buick, and I want to do the same thing with it." But he said this '49 Buick ain't been painted yet. So we told him, you know, have it towed over there, and we'll get going on that also. So that's how we actually brought back to life the '55 Chevrolet. And it was real interesting working on it and just seeing how simple things was back in the day, you know, and how easy it was to work on the vehicle, you know, even though he bought the new motor and new trans and all that, but you still had to put all the accessories and all that together too. So it was just an interesting journey for me. And to get that going, then we did the '49 Buick. And anybody that's worked on old cars like that can really appreciate how easy it is to work on them kind of vehicles, how much room you have to work on them vehicles and things like that. And also, they were made like Sherman tanks. You know what I mean? They were some solid vehicles, not like today where you, if you hit something in a car today, your whole car is liable to be totaled out. Because it's basically today's cars are, you know, just thin metal, very thin metal, close to a Pepsi can, and plastic, you know, and things like that. So it's just really nothing made today like it was back in the day. But I enjoyed back in the day working on vehicles like that. And this was in the 80s when I did this. And so it was really interesting. And there's a lot of things I learned as I was going, you know. And this is on the other people's cars and stuff like that. And we did everything in that backyard, you know, radiators, alternators, starters, mufflers, changing tires, changing transmissions, changing motors, just you name it, changing windshields. We've done everything in that backyard, you know, and it's just amazing how much you can get done in a backyard. You don't even really need a garage because we didn't have a garage. It was just in the backyard, you know. So anybody that knows how to work on cars and stuff like that, if you want to, if you're not working on cars but you know how to work on cars and you got a backyard and some tools, that's all you need, you know, and then you could actually make plenty of money once the word gets around that you know how to work on cars, you know. But don't try it if you ain't got no experience. I mean, you can learn, you know, as you go, but you don't really want to jump into somebody's vehicle and you don't have no clue what you're doing and call yourself trying to work on it and fix it, you know, because if it's your vehicle, that's a different story. But if it's somebody else's, you got to really know what you're doing, you know, to a certain extent. And you can learn as you go, too. But, you know, the reason I'm saying that, I just wouldn't want you to try to fix something you don't know how to fix and then you mess up somebody's car. That's the only reason I'm saying that. But it's a good trade. And being handy like that really means a lot. It's just today's time, the way they got the cars made. I mean, you can still work on them, but it's just very tight. You got to take, if you're trying to fix something, sometimes you got to take other parts off just to get to that part and stuff like that. It's just, And I think they designed it like that, where you basically had to take it to a garage, things like that. Because it ain't nothing like the cars in the past. It was just real simple to work on versus today's vehicles. But not saying you can't work on the cars today, but it's just you got to have a little skill set to do that on today's vehicles. But that's my grease monkey days in the 80s. Oh, I've done a lot of different things. I helped work on semi trucks and worked on cars, all kinds of stuff. Just did a whole bunch of stuff, which, I'm glad I had the experience of doing it because it learned me, a trade. And so it was just real interesting just to, mess around with cars, stuff like that, and fix them and get them running and everything like that. So we worked on a ton of cars in that backyard. And over time, it was just basically got to where people would come and you'd have to tell them you have to do it on a certain day because you just had too much going on. You know what I mean? And so now I can understand why, like, big garages, like Firestone or something like that's got a whole lot of bays in there, and to try to keep up with the demand, of repairing cars and stuff like that, getting them safe on the road and everything like that. But my best experience with the auto garage, as far as me taking it to a garage, my best experience was Goodyear. And I've been to a lot of different ones, but I ain't never had an issue with Goodyear. So, that's been my experience on, having cars fixed and stuff like that. So, but everybody probably has their own favorite, garage that they go to or whatever, but I went to many of them over the years, and I found that Goodyear is a pretty decent one. And next to that would be Sears Automotive Molding. And so things like that. And then I think third place would go to Firestone. And then fourth place would be Precision Tune. And then, fifth place would probably go to a family-owned garage or whatever that's, there's garages around that's, just family-owned, stuff like that. So, that being said, it's just the story of my Grease Monkey days that I had, did a ton of mechanic work on cars and did some on semi-trucks and things of that nature. But that's my story on bringing back to life the 55 Chevy and the 49 Buick. It's real interesting, and I'm glad I had that little journey with them particular vehicles. So that being said, we're going to stop it right here. We appreciate you listening to the story. Be a part of the channel, subscribe, hit the like and notification bell. More to come. So that being said, we're out.